Hello, so we're on day 4 of the 365-day challenge, and yesterday I was challenged to tell you all about how did I get into what I was doing. And the interesting thing was, that's 3 videos, and I felt really low, I felt really flat, and I kind of knew that I needed to be outside the house, but I didn't listen to my critic, which is always a good learning curve for me, to keep reminding myself, because I needed to be out and about, but I was challenged. So I'm out and about now. I'm just going to networking events. I'm in my high energy. I'm ready to go out and do my what I call blaze energy. I'm in there to meet people. And so I want to tell you right now, how did I get into what I do now? So I just want to go back 20 years. Okay, 1999. It's the November of 1999, and I'm in a position where I'm really unhappy because my daughter started school, I'm working weekends, I'm not getting to spend enough time with my children, and I decide I've got to find a different solution. And I've always been really good at motivating people, so I sign up as a Slim and Well consultant, and I take on my first class on the 7th of November 1999, so it's a Thursday night at 7 o'clock. By March of 2000, I have got 2 sessions in the Thursday night, 3 sessions on the Thursday morning. I go out 1 day a week, I earn a full-time wage, and I support my family as a single parent eventually in that role. I still meet people today from Slimming World who say to me, I have never met anyone that could motivate me as well as you do. However, 7 years on, in 2006, I decided to quit it all and to leave. And the reason for it was, there was twofold. The number one reason was that the first 2 or 3 years, I was loving it. I was watching people losing 7 and 8 stone, or losing half a stone, and they were losing weight. They were becoming happier, because all I've ever wanted is for everybody to be happy. Okay, and I loved seeing that transformation in people. I loved seeing them become more confident. I loved helping them on that journey. But then what happened is 3 or 4 years in, I'd start to see this pattern that people that had lost 7 or 8 stone would come back and they'd be 9 stone heavier again. And so I was like starting to get a bit despondent that the way that I was motivating people wasn't sticking. It didn't have stickability. They weren't keeping it off. Now, I'd lost 4 stone, and I generally had stayed around that weight, and I had a second baby and I put on about a stone, but generally speaking, I was keeping the weight off. And so another level that was a problem is I was going into this arena and telling jokes about being a chocoholic, but I'd actually reached a point myself where chocolate didn't bother me anymore. I didn't have the mindset that chocolate was my go-to food for comfort or anything. But every time I stood up in the class and talked about chocolate being a problem for me, I'd have a couple of days of it being a problem, and I was thinking, this isn't working for me. I'm talking this talk to people to motivate them and to get them to have empathy with me, because I do understand what it feels like to have a bar of chocolate in the fridge. I used to think people who put a bar of chocolate in the fridge and only ate 1 chunk a day were ill. I thought there was something wrong with them because they could leave chocolate in the fridge. I mean, I was the sort of person that I would have bought chocolate. I remember one time when I was trying to break the habit in my relationship with chocolate, that I'd bought chocolate and I thought, no, I don't want it. So I put it in the bin. But putting it in the bin wasn't enough, because I didn't trust myself that I wouldn't go and get it out of the bin. So I remember making a pot of gravy up and pouring it over this bar of chocolate, so that it was really horrible, that I wouldn't be tempted later on in the night to go and get it. And I was terrible at the time, before I overcome that relationship with food. So I got to a point with Slimming World where, one, my clients weren't staying happy, so I started to lose the sense of satisfaction with my work. I didn't feel good about it. 2, I was telling them a story about me not being able to do something that actually I was able to do. I had overcome my relationship with food, but every time I said I didn't have it, I was sowing this seed back in my head, and I'd get back there. And then the third thing is my marriage broke down in 2003, and I was this positive, motivational person on the outside, but I felt a complete and utter failure on the inside. And I've got a photograph actually that I found the other day of me. I've got a prolapse disc. I can't walk. I've got someone to drive me to my class, and I have taken my class laying down. Now I know better that my energy would have been lower trying to talk to people like that. It was just a martyr syndrome. I wasn't taking care of my health, and I would have been far better to pay someone to run my class for me than to think that the class couldn't run without me. So that's what was happening for me sort of between 1999 and 2006. Now, in the 2006, when I no, it wasn't 2006. 2006, signed up because I thought, right, okay, something's not working here. I've got to find a better way of being able to help my clients. So I signed up for a coaching diploma in May 2006. And then what happened is my mum in the September got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she passed away in the November. So what happened though is when I signed up for the coaching diploma, because I wanted to better motivate other people, they asked me a really important question, and I want to ask you that today as well. If money and time were no object, and you could be and have or do anything you want to do, if it could be just the way you'd like it to be, it'd be like what? And I wrote down that if money was no object, I would be a stay-at-home mum. So in my heart of hearts, the most important thing to me was to be a really, really good mum. And I reached that point, and I was a single mum in 2003, and I needed to provide for my children. And when I did that course in 2006, one of the things I realised is that because I was feeling a fraud, I was feeling like, I was motivating all these people on the outside, but my life at home was falling apart. I'd failed as a wife. My marriage had fallen apart. I'd let my children down by not keeping my unit together. Yeah, it still hurts now, actually. I'd put them through all this change. And it's not okay. I now know that actually it was the best thing I ever did for them, because the unit they were getting as a model to learn from and copy from, it wasn't a good family model. So they were better to have a really good single parent model than it would have been to have a bad family model. So I got to that point in 2006, and so in the end what I did is I left Slimming World as a consultant, because I'm self-employed. My wages were obviously fluctuating. If my motivation was down, I would lose money, and I became employed as an area manager, and I worked for them for a further 2 years until 2008. And basically what happened, I got into management. I was then motivating a team, but because I wasn't dealing with my grief, so again, it's all this pretending everything was okay. So I'm going out and doing all the rah-rah, I'm motivating people, I'm getting excited for everybody, and on the outside I look like I've got it all together. My team did really well. We got a silver award. My team were actually doing well with their members. They were losing weight. We were winning awards in the nationals. Everything on the outside looked like it was all together. And my kids, I was being all positive for them. But again, I was dying on the inside. I was just feeling like I was failing, even though it looked like I had it all together. So May 2008, by this time I've now met Mark, and we're getting married in the August, and I'm falling apart in heaps of tears, and he says, what do you really want? And I said, I just want to be a stay-at-home mum. So that thing that I'd written down 2 years before in May 2006, 2 years later in May 2008, I'm saying the same thing. And he said, well, look, we've both owned our own houses. We've both run 2 homes. We're coming together as a couple. I can run this house. You don't have to work if you don't want to. So I gave up work, and I took out, so I had from May until December where I didn't have a job. We were getting married in the August, so I project managed that. The kids went back to school. Mark went back to school in the September, and I sat there, and for a month I quite liked doing the homemaking part of it. I quite liked putting a meal on the table. I liked making sure the house was all nice and clean and tidy. I loved decorating, but I became very lonely. And I'm a people person, and most of us are. Human connection is part of our DNA. And I found myself feeling like, I think I've asked for the wrong thing. I don't want to be a stay-at-home mum. What I actually want to be is a really good working mum. And so I picked up my diploma that I'd signed up in May 2006, and I started to work back through it again. I had still been doing it, but I was struggling to do it while working full-time for Slimming World. And you had 2 years to do it. So I'd contacted them in the May and said, look, I know that it's expired. I know that I should have done it within 2 years, but this is the situation. My mum's died. I've buried my head in work. I've found it difficult to do it. Would you give me another 6 months to get the diploma finished? They were really good, and they said yes. So in December 2008, I launched my company, and I became a mums and daughter relationship coach. And I set out thinking, if I just listen to people, they will be able to make really good decisions for themselves, and I better motivate them, and I better make people happy. But here's the thing. This is what I've discovered over the last 10 years of motivating people through listening skills. If I listen to them and they make a decision, and they act on it, and they get a sense of change that's happening, that there's progress, then that makes them happy. But some people, that 80% of the time, that's all that happens. People come to me because they're on the fence. They've got splinters in their bottom. And like, shall I go this way? Shall I go this way? So this week I've been working with, a couple of women that are like, shall I stay in my marriage or shall I not? And I've worked with people like, shall I stay self-employed or shall I go back to being employed? So when you're in that fence, it's like, what shall I do? I'm looking for this. I want this. And now, if I facilitate them and make a decision, so like the women that came to me to lose weight, they lose the weight, and that change is enough for everything else to domino effect to actually work. But what I discovered over the years is that for people pleasers, people who want everybody else to be happy, their decision model is usually broken. It usually doesn't include everybody doesn't include them. And so they may be really good at making sure other people are healthy. They may be good at making sure other people are wealthy. They may be good at making sure everybody else is happy, and they're doing everything you can to make everybody else happy. But if I say to them, and what would you like to have happen just for you? They'll go, as long as everybody else is happy, I'm happy. And to some extent that is true. But if you are somebody who, when you listen to other people, when they're unhappy, it emotionally impacts you, then their happiness starts to predetermine your own happiness. And that's where I found that first of all, their decision-making model didn't include themselves. So it was all about what everybody else wanted. So if you want everybody to be happy, then I'll tell you now that you have to include you. And it took me 18 months to realise that I didn't include me in the happiness. So we would plan a day out, and my husband and son were trained and asked to say to me, and is that what you want? And I'd go, no, I want to spend time with you, but I don't want to go mountain biking. I want to spend time with you, but I don't want to go to the cinema. And so I realised that the reason why I was unhappy, and I was feeling resentful, and I was feeling like people weren't listening to me, and I was feeling like things weren't going quite. So I had this sort of fraudy feeling. It's like on the outside it looked like everything was okay, but inside it didn't feel right. Is because I was doing activities with them because the driver was to be with them. And I also had a fear then of being on my own. So over 18 months, I started to learn to say, yep, actually being with you is a priority today. And so I'm consciously going, I don't really want to go mountain bike, but I don't dislike it that much. Being with you is important. And so I'd update my decision-making model. And then other times I'm like, no, I really don't want to go mountain bike, and I really don't want to go to the cinema. I'd like to paint or read. And so I would choose to paint or read and do some of the things, do the activity I wanted to do, and let go of the need to be with them for another couple of hours. And the interesting thing that's happened as a result of that is I've learned to be okay being on my own and to be okay with my own company. But also what's really interesting is I've noticed that my husband and my son will come and read with me. They'll come and paint with me, not always. And so the balance has switched. So if you just want everybody to be happy, just check in when you're saying everybody, does that everybody include you? Because I know for me, it didn't. And when I look back now to my Slimming World days, those people who lost the weight and then regained it were the sorts of people who I was having conversations with who were wanting to eat this kind of food, but they were really struggling because their husband or their children were complaining about the food, and so it's making their job harder. And so what they were struggling with really was having what they wanted and having to listen to other people being unhappy. And so they either had to be very strong and very organised and go, actually, I'm going to eat this food and I'm happy to cook you what you want because I want to provide for you as a mother, as the head of the house. I'm quite happy to cook for you what you want to make you happy, but I'm going to cook what I want. And actually, they could do that if they were organised and they were good at their planning and they were good at strategy. And that's why my middle program started to become all about your timing, your planning and your decision-making models, because you can cook them separate meals if you choose to. It's only a story you're telling yourself about, I haven't got time. It's about being organised, being efficient and being effective. So in our house right now, I'm vegan. I eat a lot of sauces. My son likes meat. So I make all the batches of sauces up. We marinate his meat in the sauce the night before, and then he has the same meal with us, but with chicken or beef or whatever in it, because that's what he wants to do. It is doable. You can do it as long as you understand that's what your driver is in your decision making model. So if you want everybody to be happy, make sure that you're happy. And the reason why we tend to default back to doing what makes other people happy, the number one thing that I discovered is people don't know how to listen to other people when they're upset. So if you're somebody who is a people pleaser and your driver to change your behaviour is because somebody else has become unhappy, I want to leave you with this gift today. what I have discovered, the number one thing that makes the difference is if you can listen to somebody while they're emotionally in pain and you don't get emotionally upset by it. Often that is all that's needed in order for them to transform from unhappy to happy. All they needed from you was a moment of your time to listen to them, not to interrupt them and say, I'll do this for you, I can do that for you, how can I make you better? Because all of that reaction, all of that doing that you're doing is because of your desire not to feel uncomfortable with their unhappiness. And you start giving them solutions that do not suit them, that are not helpful to them. They get angry because they feel you're not listening to them, and they don't like you because you don't listen to them. And so you start this perpetual cycle that you're doing everything you're doing, and then you get to the point where you're going, all I want is for everyone to be happy, and nothing I do helps them. I'm listening to them, I'm coming up with ideas, and I'm running around and I'm changing my whole life. So I'm not eating the food I want to eat because they don't like it and it makes them sad. I'm not going to the painting and reading because I'm going to mountain biking and going to the cinema because that's what makes them happy. I'm doing all these things to make them happy and they're still not frigging happy. What's the point? And you get to that point where, and this was me 8 years ago, I'd been doing all this stuff with clients. I learned all it. I got back in the same pattern where I felt a fraud. I felt an imposter. Everybody saw me as this really successful businesswoman. Everybody saw me as this really happy person that's married. I'm married to my soulmate, my best friend. But inside I was dying because every time Mark rolled his eyes, I would compromise what I wanted to do and do what he wanted to do because I couldn't listen to him and have him tart. He only has to tart or roll his eyes or whatever. And when I learned that was my trigger for changing my trajectory. So if I'm going to eat like this or I'm going to do this and he rolls his eyes, I would then change what I was going to do and do something to please him, and then he'd still roll his eyes and he'd still be unhappy. And guess why? Because he wasn't rolling his eyes because he was unhappy with me. He was rolling his eyes because now that I was doing something different, he was trying to work out what he was going to do different. And he was quite happy for me to do something different, but he needed some time to process it. Or he was rolling his eyes because he had wind, got nothing to do with what was going on in me. And I kept changing my behaviour to please him. And it got to that point where 8 years ago, I was so busy trying to please my daughter, trying to help her, trying to help my son and my husband. I was homeschooling Liam. My husband was at home and he was in my company, so he was working with me. And my daughter was, falling apart. She was just devastated. She was going through transition and teens. And I was so a mess myself. I couldn't hold that ground for her. I couldn't hold her that space when she was scared. Instead of just holding it and saying to her, it's okay, I'm here. You're safe. Because I wasn't feeling safe inside. She got all of my angst. Because every time she got upset, I got upset by her being upset. I tried to fix it and we got into this bind. What I know now is that when you can listen to people without getting emotionally upset, you can transform their lives. But more importantly, you can include yourself. So if you want everybody to be happy, make sure that original decision includes your own health, wealth and happiness. And if you keep reverting back to prioritizing other people, you need to update your decision-making model. And if you want to make everybody happy, and this is what they want and that's what you want, then you have to get super organized. You have to have a plan. You have to understand how your time monster works in your head, because it will tell you stories based on your old drivers of trying to keep everybody happy and you're running on this adrenaline. And actually, when you take a big deep breath, there's always enough time for the things that really matter. All right. So if you get to that point where you've made a decision and it's inclusive of you, and now it means more work, there are ways to do it. And it might be you have to ask the other person to help you. And if you don't like asking for help because they might roll their eyes and they might be upset because they've got to do things differently, it's uncomfortable for them because you're now changing the way that it's going to be, you're going to have to be able to listen to their huffiness until you realign and you get the collaboration and partnership working. And if you can't ask for help and you can't deal with them being uncomfortable for a little while, you'll keep going back to doing what they want you to do rather than what you want to do. And guess what? It doesn't make them happy either. Watching you complain about them all of the time, watching them complain about yourself, doesn't make them happy either. So that's it. That's why I'm in the work I do now. I take people through 3 programs. The first one is clarity to make a decision. And if you're happy and it all works, great, fantastic. If you make the decision and it doesn't make you happy, then we have to update your decision-making model, and we have to look at your time and organisation to make sure that your time includes time for you as well as the people that you care about. And then lastly, if you still keep defaulting back to making people else the priority, we've got to look at how your listening skills are working. That you've got to get to the point where you understand that rolling eyes, tutting, human default reactions, people crying, you know, they are going to go through change that makes them unhappy, and it's got nothing to do with you. You know, when people die in our life, it's heartbreaking. When we go through divorce, it's heartbreaking. When we lose a contract, when we work really hard with the marketing on our business. So I put 3 videos out and got no engagement whatsoever. My uncle in America, bless him, is been liking them, but I haven't had, nobody's put a comment, nobody shared it, and I feel very much, you know, it'd be very easy for me to fall into that, oh, what's the point, I'm not going to do it. It's so easy when you're in business to put stuff out, to ask, to try and help, and then get nothing back. But that's not true. That there is something there. I've got some learning from those 3 videos. I've learned that I was doing it in the wrong space with the wrong energy. I've done it at the wrong time of day, and I've been saying the wrong things for me, not for you. It's about what comes from my heart. Today, day 4, is when I'm at high energy and I'm talking from the heart. So what I'd love to know from you is, are you somebody, answer these 3 questions at the bottom. Are you somebody that just wants everybody to be happy? 2, are you happy right now? And 3, what needs to change? Out of all the things I've said, is there been an epiphany moment where you've gone, oh God, yeah, I do that? So 1, do you want everybody to be happy? 2, are you happy? And 3, if not, what needs to happen for you to be happy too? And if you want to chat to me, let me know. I've got space for 4 one-to-one sessions starting in July. Let's get on that road and get you started so that you can have decisions that include your happiness too. Have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon.